Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this telecast today on the 13th day of July. Well, looking out the window, the weather is very good. It was sunny in Brisbane with 16 degrees. We are trying to, make a connection to the Parliament House, and as soon as we do that, we'll bring our Premier live. But until then, we will keep going with the news as we have. Well, as we now on the international scene, there's been lots that's been happening in India. Well, as they said, that the skies have opened, as we can see from this here.
और बादल फटने से आप तबाही के निशान टीवी स्क्रीन पर देख रहे हैं। हिमाचल से बुरी खबर आई, हिमाचल के धर्मशाला से। जी हां, और उधर जम्मू कश्मीर के गांदरबल के अलावा पड़ोसी राज्य हिमाचल प्रदेश के प्रसिद्ध पर्यटन स्थल धर्मशाला में भी बादल फट गया है। यहाँ पर बादल फटने की वजह से काफी नुकसान की खबर है और कई पर्यटकों की गाड़ियां पानी के साथ बह गई हैं। धर्मशाला में मानसून का रौद्र रूप देखने को मिला है। बागनाग इलाके में आज सुबह बादल फटने से अचानक बाढ़ आ गई और देखते देखते एक छोटे से नाले ने नदी का रूप धारण कर लिया। बाढ़ से हादसू का नाला ओवरफ्लो हो गया और इस नाले में कई लग्जरी गाड़ियां माचिस की तिल्लियों की तरह बहती चली गईं और इस नाले के साथ दोनों ओर कई होटल भी लगते हैं। बादल फटने से इन होटल्स को भी काफी नुकसान पहुंचा है और वही स्थानीय लोग पानी के ओवरफ्लो को देखकर काफी डर गए और सहम गए। भागसू में इस वक्त अफरा तफरी का माहौल बना हुआ है। वहीं सोशल मीडिया पर मौके का वीडियो भी वायरल हो रहा है।
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, those are those horrific scenes coming there from Dharamsala, where they said that it's like the skies just opened up and there's so much rain, cars just being washed away, and so many lives being lost in that lightning strike there as well. Well, right now the Premier is ready to join us, so we'll go straight to that news first, before we move on.
Overseas acquired case detected in hotel quarantine, and the other two cases are locally acquired but detected in home quarantine and linked to known cases. So they were tested on day 12, which is great news to show that everything's working. I know Dr. Young's very pleased with this. So when we ask people when they're a close contact to go in home quarantine, people are doing the right thing and they are being found. So that's keeping Queenslanders safe. So I'm really happy about that. So we've got 14,941 tests over the past 24 hours. And of course, everyone, if you have any symptoms, please go and get tested. That's very important. And then also too, we've had 11,943 vaccines in the past 24 hours. So, of course, we are still monitoring the situation in New South Wales very closely. And, of course, Dr. Young is giving us updates. We're monitoring very closely that sewage testing. We've just heard breaking news that there's a positive case in Goulburn. So Dr. Young will be talking about that at AHPPC. So we are keeping a very close eye on what's happening in New South Wales. So I just want to reassure Queenslanders that if it gets to the stage that we have to close, we will. But at this stage, we are monitoring it every single day. So I just want to give that assurance to Queenslanders that we are monitoring it every single day. So I'll hand over to Dr. Young. Thanks.
Thank you, Premier. So yes, very good news. Our system is working beautifully because people are being extremely responsive. So we had those 3 cases, one of them in hotel quarantine, tested positive on day 1, had just returned from the UK via Singapore. Then our other 2 cases are cases in the community, both related to the Greek Orthodox Community Centre admin area, and both went into home quarantine when they were identified as close contacts, and they tested negative when they went into quarantine and tested negative again, and then both have tested positive on day 12. Both are well, symptom-free, and so they've already been spoken with, and they've remained in their home, and their other people living in those households have also been in their home. So there is no risk at all with those two individuals. But it does prove that it doesn't matter how many negative tests you get, you can, up to that 14 days incubation period, still test positive. So please, anyone who's out there, and I've got some numbers here, so you would remember on the 7th of July there were 5,701 people in home quarantine in Queensland. Today there are 2,924. So people are getting through that 14 days, but there is still a number to go, of course. So it's really important that you do not leave home quarantine until you get that negative test and you're told that you're able to leave, because that's absolutely critical, and I thank everyone who's doing that for that 14 days. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all of the Queenslanders who've been home quarantining, and as the Chief Health Officer has just said, we still have 2,924 people quarantining at home, and it's because these people are doing the right thing and staying in their homes over this period that is keeping the rest of Queensland safe. And we continue to get examples of positive cases very late in the 14 days, showing the importance of waiting until that final test on day 12 to see if it's safe or not for people to be released. But it's great to see, almost 3,000 people have left home quarantining just in the last week. And of course these numbers will keep coming down very quickly, but we'll wait for all these test results. Again, the message is clear: social distancing, hand hygiene, staying home if you're unwell, and please getting tested. And thank you to all the businesses, to all the customers who are using the check-in app. These are all measures that we didn't have all of these last year, but certainly go a long way to meaning that we can open up on Friday morning and again have the lowest restrictions in the country and have our economy fully operating and supporting businesses and getting people back into work. So thank you all Queenslanders.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner.
So the message is still there for all of those persons in the current area that has the restrictions in place until 6 a.m. Friday to please abide by them. We did hand out 58 masks yesterday, so we still are seeing people not carrying masks and not wearing them when they should. Of course, we will work with people to do that, but our preference is, of course, in order to stop the spread of the virus, that people are wearing the masks. We did have to issue 3 PINs, or penalty infringement notices, and 2 of them were for people who refused to wear masks once being given the option. The other was for a person who had provided false declaration in coming across our border. And at our road borders yesterday, 2,053 vehicles were intercepted and only 1 turned around. That is a very good figure for us, and we continue to monitor that. That means we are getting very good compliance by people coming into this state, and we need that to continue. At our domestic air borders, 1,793 persons intercepted and processed, 8 turned around, 83 into hotel quarantine, and 185 international arrivals, bringing our total hotel quarantine to 2,882, of which 2,224 are international passengers. Thank you.
Any questions?
If you're reasonably comfortable with the Sydney lockdown, why are you urging Queenslanders, even in regional New South Wales, to come home now?
Look, we want Queenslanders to come home because the situation is unfolding each day in New South Wales. So we're seeing more and more cases, we're seeing more hospitalisations, and we are monitoring whether it's spreading to other parts of New South Wales. So if we do see it spreading to other parts of New South Wales, we won't hesitate to shut the border.
So why not follow Victoria's lead and just shut now then?
Because I'm getting the advice of Dr Young, the health advice, and she's monitoring all of that sewage in Greater Sydney, and she is providing us with advice every single day, and we will continue to monitor the situation in New South Wales every single day.
Are you at all of not shutting before Origin at all? Is that an economic?
Not at all. Not at all. Every morning we meet, and every morning we take the advice of Dr Young.
Will Goulburn become a hotspot?
I think so. It was just breaking news on ABC just before I came here.
How concerning is that? How concerning is that?
Sorry?
Do you think the fines are adequate for the full people?
I might get the police to address that, but let me make it clear. We do not want people coming here breaking the law, pure and simple. So it is extremely disappointing to see that happen. And I know that Maritime Safety and police have been working on that, but I think I'll get police to address that if I can.
We're hearing reports of people unable to book in for their second jab in the time frame that's recommended. For example, a few people at Stars who've had their first jab haven't been able to book in.
Yeah, the Health Minister addressed this yesterday, so there was a bit of shortage of supply Monday, Tuesday. I think we're getting more supply today. And we're asking people who are due for their second doses of Pfizer just to ring ahead so we can make sure that you get your second doses. So it's an issue of supply.
Can I just ask you about that case we talked about yesterday, Anthony McCormick? He's the gentleman who flew over from Canada, wanted to an exemption to see his mother, but she passed away. Throughout all this, yourself and Dr Young have maintained Queensland Health were progressing the case and they're waiting on a COVID
That's
test.
my advice, yes, from New South Wales.
Standing by that?
Well, that's my advice.
So
I can only go on what my advice
Mr
is.
McCormick's provided an email he received from Queensland Health, and it says, your request for exemption has not been approved. There's no approval has been provided, your request has been closed.
Yeah,
but he received that prior to his mother passing away. How do you reconcile that?
Look, I don't have that email, so I have to have a look at it. Okay?
He says he's trying to get that so he can make his mum's funeral, but he'll have to quarantine for 14 days. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. Well, look, we'll talk to him about that. Like I've said, we've actually increased the exemptions unit. We're going to have a medical practitioner there dealing with individual cases. We've got social workers. I think what happened was, before what happened in Greater Sydney, some of that unit had reduced in number, and we're now building it back up to that capacity because there are going to be more of these cases.
Would you be disappointed though if Queensland Health had it in fact?
I haven't read it. I'm not going to comment on something I haven't seen.
It's in black and white. Would you be disappointed?
I haven't seen it. So what I said, I can only go on the advice I have been given.
Yeah, but it would be disappointing, wouldn't it, if Queensland Health have advised you that they're progressing it, but in fact they rejected it?
I haven't seen it. I need to see the document.
Can I just ask you a question? On a day when you're asking for 2,900 people in home quarantine to do the right thing for 14 days,
yes,
2 high-profile jockeys were caught on camera partying at toad races up in Port Douglas. They were on day 8 of a 14-day stay-at-home direction. Initially, police said there were no breaches and no action taken. They've updated that yesterday and told us that these jockeys were issued with a warning and asked to either leave the state or...
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the update there from Parliament House. And as our Premier has mentioned that, we will need to keep those things first on the advice of Dr. Young. And that they are meeting on a daily basis and providing that information. Well, right now, as we know about that case that we were talking about in India, let's finish that. Here's the full report. I showed you some glimpses there from our Hindi channel because, they had quite good coverage in there as well. But here's the coverage by IBC. This is from the scene of the lightning strike in Jaipur. And this point here is that high, the watchtower, clock tower, where people come to get selfies and everything. You get a wonderful view there. This is my home state, and my young cousins and other people live here.
हाइट वाले आदमी ज़्यादा डिसबैलेंस होते हैं। रियल बता रहा हूँ, भगवान कसम।
और कल शाम को हमारी नाइट में जैसे वो उतरना था एक रास्ता यहाँ से उस टोटी में बंद हुआ उसमें सीधा लगा के बेल्ट लगा के जैसे फिल्मों में नहीं जाता पूरा स्वर्ग देखने चढ़े थे।
हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
So, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before, that devastating news coming from India. Well, right now, breaking news here is that Victoria has recorded 1 new COVID-19 case in addition to the 2 others announced yesterday. There are now 24,470 test results which were received yesterday, and 14,384 doses of vaccine were administered at the state-run sites. 2 people tested positive yesterday after returning from New South Wales on red zone permits. A third member of the household of 4 has also tested positive, Premier Daniel Andrews said. We are very confident we've got our arms around those people and ISO, and that they are doing the right thing, he said. So they are in isolation. We'll be able to manage that. There will be some exposure sites. I'd ask people to have a look. One of the cases is listed as being acquired interstate. There are currently 20 active cases in Victoria. So that's what's happening in Victoria. Here's that report.
Sydney's COVID crisis continues to spread. Once again, it's coming to Melbourne.
I'm not surprised that we're seeing some flying embers coming in from New South Wales.
3 removalists drove from New South Wales to Craigieburn on Thursday to drop off furniture. They then went to the city of Maribyrnong to pick up furniture before heading to South Australia the next day and then back to Sydney. As a result, 2 families of 4 are potentially exposed and are now isolating. But questions about whether removalists stopped, ate and slept are yet to be answered. Officials hopeful they followed national freight rules and stayed in their vehicle.
The information we're getting from them is not quite as tight and robust as we would like.
Victoria had recorded its 12th day of 0 cases, but that run is over after 2 people of another family of 4 in the city of Hume tested positive. They are meant to be isolating under the red zone permit since returning from New South Wales last week. There are more than 8,000 people in home quarantine after returning from red zones in New South Wales. 744 arrived yesterday before the border closed.
Now, with our 3rd incursion from New South Wales, we need to be eternally vigilant.
If Ash Barty is to win her first Grand Slam on home soil in January, Tennis Australia says Victoria must waive the need to quarantine for 2 weeks, or international players simply won't come.
The 2 weeks of hard, strict quarantine will not be something that we can encourage the players to participate in, but working with, by that point, we will all be vaccinated.
We want to see the Australian Open proceed. We've proven that we can do it, and we will work with Craig Tiley and the team at the Oz Open to do just that.
This city thrives on the Australian Open, but the CBD has been one of the hardest hit by COVID. And with more people working from home and continued restrictions, new analysis predicts the city's economy won't return to pre-COVID levels until 2024.
There you go. So, it is very hard, but, what do we do? Well, there are rules and regulations, and there's the health of the wider community as well. But as has been said, that by that time we would all be vaccinated as well. So that's another point. Well, let's hear from Dr. Kerry Chand and her explanation of the situation.
Can I just say I'm in 2 minds about that, because if I can find all the cases out there today through really, really high testing, that's actually a win. Because what I want to do is actually find every single person who currently has COVID or is at risk of COVID. So even the numbers are a bit variable, because we have to interpret about whether we're getting to people in that, early. If we're getting to people really early when they're just turning infectious, then they've probably had that chance of not infecting it further, and if we can contain the family unit, we can stop the spread. So the numbers also have to be interpreted with some on-the-ground understanding. And so, yes, I would say I'm in mixed minds whether I need to have a larger number tomorrow. Obviously, in the end, I want to see it going down, and I also want to see that more people are in isolation, or even if they haven't been in isolation, they've been staying home. Because actually, if you're staying at home, you're effectively isolating from the community. You may not have been isolating from others in your household, but you've effectively been isolating. And that's the whole idea of the stay-at-home orders. To infect, if we find someone is positive and they've actually not been to the shops, not been to a pharmacist, not been to a medical centre, then really there has not been any extension of community.
So there you go. If you are staying at home, you are in fact, isolating. So, which is a good news. Well, the point that has always been mentioned is that unless it's absolutely necessary, don't go out. Take that precaution, stay at home, and if you can work from home, and if your offices and other things are nearby, go to work and just stay put there, and don't go out unnecessarily. Well, infectious diseases physician is saying that we might be in this for a little bit longer.
Get more now on the situation in Sydney, and authorities have expressed alarm at the growing number of people positive with that Delta strain moving around in the community, particularly in the city's southwest. Professor Greg Dorr is an infectious diseases physician at Sydney St Vincent's Hospital. He joins us now from Sydney. Greg, good morning to you.
Morning, Michael.
We've seen case numbers go up and up and up each day. 112 positive cases yesterday. Based on this rate, would you expect it to keep increasing?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a pretty tough week for everyone, and we're all expecting the numbers to continue to increase over the next few days. But hopefully by the end of the week we might see some blue sky and see the numbers starting to plateau. Because the restrictions that have been tightened in the last sort of week or so, it often does take several days before they start to have an impact.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about those restrictions. In your view, have they been tough enough to combat the Delta strain?
Look, it's a really tough strain to get on top of. There's no doubt about that. I think many of us, including myself, underestimated the degree of increased infectiousness, so it really is a concern. Look, there's always a few other things that we could do, but I think it's important to state that most of the transmission that's occurring is occurring in the community, in households. It's not occurring through people going shopping and those sort of things that are getting publicised at the moment. It's really the thing that we need to clamp down on, in a sense, is people coming forward for testing if they're symptomatic, people not visiting other people's houses, and really restricting that movement among people within households. That's going to be the major thing that stop the virus from being rapid.
And that's been the subject of pleas every day from the New South Wales Premier about people not visiting others, particularly in the southwest of Sydney. On those testing rates, Greg, are you happy with where they're at, or would you like to see more people going out to get tested as Sydney tries to beat this strain?
Look, I think a couple of things. We need, obviously, the overall number to increase, but we need the numbers in the southwest to really increase. I was really encouraged by the numbers coming out of the St Vincent's Hospital pop-up clinic at Fairfield Showground yesterday. I think it was around 3,000 people that tested through that clinic. So that's incredibly encouraging. Clearly the community is getting the message, they're coming forward. So that sort of more targeted sort of testing in those areas is really essential.
Okay, so using your best case scenario, and everybody out there is hoping it is correct, of cases peaking at the end of this week, which would mark 3 weeks of lockdown in Sydney. If they peak at the end of this week, hypothetically, how longer a lockdown are people in Sydney looking at?
Look, we're in this for several weeks at least. There's no doubt about that. So, we're going to be extended from Friday, I imagine, for initially at least another couple of weeks, but I expect this to go on for another month at least.
Okay, another month after Friday.
The Melbourne lockdown. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and you were citing the Melbourne lockdown parallels?
Yeah, look, I think, well, hopefully we won't get to that sort of peak, but it really does take a long time to get the active cases completely under control. And you add on to that the fact that this variant looks to be more infectious than the original variant by quite a bit. And that equals a prolonged period of tight restrictions to control the spread in the community. There's no doubt about that.
New South Wales Health is urging people to consult their GP, get advice, but if you're over 40, go and have the AstraZeneca jab. Is that?
Yes, and definitely so. But by the looks of it, here the doctor is talking about that maybe it could be extended for another month. But in this report, we see that it could even go till Christmas.
Let's get more on Sydney's outbreak and all things COVID. Dr. Norman Swan, presenter of the RN's Health Report and the ABC's popular Coronacast, joins us from Sydney. Good morning to you, Norman. How are you going?
Hi, yeah, going well. Thank you very much.
Lots of confusion still about the AstraZeneca jab. Each day we seem to learn something new that I don't know clears things up.
No, I think that we are a bit clod-hopping in our approach towards the vaccines. We're not spinning and being flexible as I think we should be when we've got such poor supply. even as it ramps up, it's still not good enough. And vaccine hesitancy, as people saw in Victoria, disappears when you've got an outbreak, and it's disappearing in New South Wales as well. And there are various strategies that could help here but don't seem to be employed. So one is get your Astra earlier to get covered, which is fine. And sorry, Michael, I couldn't join you in getting the second dose. I had my second dose on Sunday at 8.5 weeks, and because I just want to be covered, and that's a good thing to do, and just get that second dose in and get covered. 6 weeks might be a little bit early, but that's up to you and your doctor to decide. There are various other strategies. We still haven't approved a mixed dose strategy, so where you could have Astra followed by Pfizer, which gives you almost the equivalent of having 2 Pfizers. For example, what you could do, and it's up to people's choice, is say to people under 60, look, it's up to you and your doctor whether or not you have your first dose of Astra, but what we will give you at 3 or 4 weeks is this Pfizer as a second dose, and that will boost immunity quite considerably when you've got the epidemic running in a place like New South Wales. The other thing that you could do, for example, is in states where you don't have COVID running, extend the second dose of Pfizer to 6 or 8 weeks, which is probably just as effective, if not maybe a little bit more effective, and that will free up doses for where you've got outbreaks like in New South Wales to free more Pfizer up there. We're not flexing how we do things. We're not being flexible, and that's also reflected, by the way, in New South Wales, where they're not being that flexible in terms of how they're approaching this outbreak. Okay, let's pick up on the outbreak. What's your view about the scale now and where it could go in the next few days, if not weeks? It could go off, unfortunately. It's growing exponentially. I mean, in this whole pandemic, I just want to be proved wrong, and I would love to be proved wrong. But last night on 7:30, we had modellers from the Burnett Institute and also data journalist Juliette O'Brien on saying the same thing. If the settings don't change, and they are what they are at the moment, then it seems that they're going to go through to Friday. So every day can be nearly a week at the other end. So every single day you wait. And if it doesn't change, based on what happened in Victoria in the second wave, this could go on till Christmas. Really? Yes. It could go on for 2-3 months, or it could get out of control altogether. So this is really serious in New South Wales. It's at a level which nobody has seen before in Australia, and they need to go to stage 4 lockdown now, according to Brendan Crabb and the people at the Burnett Institute. But Tony Blakely is saying the same thing. So epidemiologists are saying this is just not enough. People in New South Wales don't know what's essential retail, what's not, who are essential workers, who's not. They're allowed to travel for 10 kilometres for exercise, etc., etc., etc. It is not a proper lockdown. Okay, going to Christmas is, 5 months, and I mean, worst case scenario, of course, but that'd take it longer than Victoria's second wave shutdown last year. Absolutely. And remember, that was with a version.
So there you are, you had it right. It could go till Christmas. So, well, it's writing on the wall, and it is a situation which really, really needs to be monitored with those kind of cases. Well, right now, before we go into the functions and events, let's take a look at a report from World Health Organization. And they're saying that, some countries are just greedy.
While many countries haven't even started vaccinating, and another country has already vaccinated majority of its population, the 2 doses, and now moving to a 3rd dose, which is the booster, it's really not only disappointing, it's seriously disappointing. It doesn't even make any sense. The Delta variant is ripping around the world at a scorching pace, driving a new spike in cases and death. And I'm sorry to say it, but if solidarity is not working, if there is one word that can explain it, I'm sorry to say this, but I think anybody can see that it's greed. Instead of Moderna and Pfizer prioritizing the supply of vaccines as boosters to countries whose populations have relatively high coverage, we need them to go all out to channel supply to COVAX, the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, and low and middle income countries which have very low vaccine coverage.
So there you go, you've heard it from him. He's just mentioned there that it is nothing else but greed where, some countries have vaccinated the whole of virtually the entire population, going on to the boost of the doses now, and the other countries are still struggling. So there you go, that update on there. Right now, let's take a commercial break and get a message from our sponsors for the segment.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world. And don't forget that tomorrow we will have the real estate update with Usha Chandra right here in these studios from 10 a.m. And our news segment will be at 9 a.m. Well, talking about functions and events right now, so moving on, we'll talk about India Day Fair, which is Gopio, Queensland's iconic event every year held at Roma Street Parklands. This year, because of COVID, we've gone to a undercover, bigger but more controlled venue, which is the South Bank Piazza. It's a message from Councillor Angela Owen.
What I'll do...
Hello everyone, I'm Councillor Angela Owen, and it's with great pleasure once again that I throw my support behind India Day Fair to be held this year on the 15th of August at Suncorp Piazza at South Bank in Brisbane. This is for many years, and it is wonderful to know that it is continuing and growing from strength to strength.
Continuing to grow from strength to strength, as we know that Gopio has chapters here in Queensland and many other locations as well. So our next message is from Mayor Tom Tate.
Okay. Wonderful to be here tonight to celebrate Gopio, and with all our Indian friends. There's one thing we've got on the Gold Coast. We are so blessed. We're blessed with wonderful weather. We're blessed with the way we've handled pandemic, and we're so blessed with the Indian society that is so generous to help not just Indian descent, but also the wider community. So here's celebration. I love being here.
And as he mentioned, he loves being here, and of course, it is wonderful to see that kind of support. Well, India Day Fair is not only for the oldies or the police, it's for the young people as well. And here's young Ishana inviting you all to India Day Fair.
Hello everyone, my name is Ishana Chandra, and I would like to invite you to Gopio, Queensland's India Day Fair at South Bank Piazza on the 15th of August. A free, fun-filled family event celebrating India's independence, a new venue and bigger, bolder programming. See you all there!
So there you go. Every year she puts out her message for that invitation to India Day Fair. But right now, let's take a look at some of the other functions and events taking place here in So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. Wonderful to have your company today on the 13th day of July, and the temperature outside now is just 17 degrees, and it's bright and sunny day here in Brisbane. Well, until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. Please, please, please do take care when you're out and about, and do only go out and about if it is absolutely necessary at this point in time. And of course, always observe those safety rules. Wear the mask, wash your hands, and keep those social distancing. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. We'll see you all tomorrow. Be happy and remain safe.